Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another live with Esoteric Nexus. I'm Whitney, and this is Braden.
Hello.
And today we're talking about ADHD and our experiences with it.
What we've learned, what we've come across, but we are in no way, shape, or form professionals in the topic of ADHD.
Yes. So, with my experience with ADHD, I'm a mother of an ADHD child. Braden here,
I just have ADHD.
he has ADHD.
I have a touch of autism.
And I feel like ADHD is really stigmatized as a disorder or a sickness. Like when some people hear that an adult has been diagnosed with ADHD later in life, I've heard stories of people say they've had people come up to them and ask them, "Are you okay?" Like they've just been diagnosed with a sickness and there's something wrong with them.
Or just like coming to the realization, maybe they're just asking because like all of a sudden you realize you now have a mental impairment, and those words in and of themselves sound like, oh no, you poor
Called a
thing.
mental disorder.
Disorder, disruption,
Yes.
imbalance.
So like 5 to 7 people are diagnosed with ADHD, and it is found in children and in adults. And most adults who have ADHD, 80% of them have gone undiagnosed because they don't know they have it.
Well,
You just live with it.
with the masking and the like expected way to just be and to let go of your weird quirkiness.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's really like there's a very strong societal pressure against, I wouldn't say against the ADHD, but like the way that people with ADHD, with the neurodivergency, the way that things are seen, the way that they're understood, the roundabout way that you seem to have to go to get to a conclusion, all those things they're like extra work to somebody else who sees things just so straightforward. Right.
So one of the myths about ADHD is that people with ADHD cannot focus. And they have this super skill of hyper focus. It's just hard to focus on things that don't stimulate your brain.
Yes. And it's something that like, it's not an excuse to not work on the things that don't feed you the dopamine that you need to get through it, but it's recognizing those things regardless and finding a workaround for them, whether that's, for some people it's caffeine and sugar, other people it's just taking a 10-15 minute break, like whatever that
or
thing is.
Seriously working out hard.
Yeah.
So ADHD, oh my gosh, what's the word?
Well, I wouldn't so much go like that, like the hyper focus is different, but I guess what I was pointing out is like, even though we have our spots where we have a harder time focusing, we have other outlets that we can use, that we can incorporate with the things that we don't really want to do in order to get them done.
There is a deficiency of dopamine. The ADHD brain has a hard time taking in dopamine, which is the happy chemical, or known as the motivating chemical that makes you want to do things.
Well, and it's not a deficiency, it's we don't have enough receptors. We don't have enough receptors to take in the amount of dopamine that we need.
So that's why people with ADHD go towards activities that will
heavily dopamine them.
Yes. So like video games, or chemicals, or the working out.
Yeah, anything that you can transfer. That's why people with ADHD have so many hobbies. It's because they're doing that.
Right.
Focus.
Finding ways to stimulate the brain.
Yeah.
My son was diagnosed with ADHD when he was like 4. So I feel like at that moment in time, I was going through some really hard I was going through a divorce, and that poor kid was in the middle of it all. So I feel like that might have played a part in his behavior. Yeah, his behavior coming out the way that it did. But he's 12 years old now, and we still have a lot of difficulties in school. And like with the whole focus thing, he's a super smart kid, and he can knock out some comics like none other. He can write out a whole Pokemon story. He can create a whole Minecraft world. He can focus, but it has to be something that engages him, that stimulates him in a way. It's really, really hard to get him to do homework or writing. He hates writing.
I hate writing. I totally understand that. You can't write fast enough to get your words out on paper, so you feel like you're pulling your own hand along to get the words out quicker, so you can get to the next part before A, you lose it, or B, you lose interest in the writing itself. And then other times you just write. Most definitely. And you know, there's like a really big key correlation with trauma and ADHD, and you'll notice that the ADHD will always be there, but when you have your triggers, you have your traumas, they really exasperate different aspects of your ADHD, whether it's your inattentiveness, you're avoiding the whole breakdown of the executive function, trying to actually start something or do something.
Right.
It's already hard enough to do it, and then you topple on to the anxiety of being yelled at or being broken down because it takes 10 years, because it's harder for you. It's literally harder for you. It's been scientifically proven that it takes more to get started, and more often than not when you're in that paralysis, it's because you literally don't have enough of something, which is when they tell you to get out of your head and into your body, start doing exercises.
What do you mean by paralysis? Because I've heard a couple different
well, you get into
the ADHD paralysis, where I've heard it described as you are working through the thing. So you've got all these things going through your head, and you've got these lists of things that need to happen, and so you're just stuck. You can't do anything because you are stuck in this loop of all the things that you have to do, and now it's just so exhausting you can't do it.
Well, that's like on a broader scale when you have a lot of things that need doing, but even on the simple things get broken down into the tasks. So like dishes, man. Like dishes is getting all the dishes out of the sink. Then you have to fill up the sink with sink water, with soap water, and then you got to wash the dishes. You got to rinse them off. But before you rinse them off, you got to make sure that that other sink is completely scrubbed out, because you don't want to rinse dishes off in a dirty sink, right? And then you got to put them away. And more often than not, when you've got to do dishes, you've already got dishes that you need to put away. And if you're anything like me, you're halfway through your dishes before you realize you don't have room to put more dishes there. So then you're sitting there with wet hands, and you got to dry them off, and then you got to go take care of your plates. So like, there's so much when you start thinking about all that. It's like, I just hyper expanded 15 minutes of work into an hour and a half because the amount of energy it had me going through all of those different steps, and the anxiety that comes with missing steps and having to go back. So, and that's like its own anxiety, right? And you just got to work through that, and you find your own ways. But then if you add on to it, your parents yelling at you. And you add on to the 3-hour sessions of dishes you had because you weren't allowed to leave the sink until they were all done. Or the dirty dishes that you had to eat or drink off of because you couldn't get them clean enough because your attention wasn't there. You didn't scrub them hard enough, or you don't have good eyesight, so then you don't see them. And most of the time it's clear cheese that you can hardly see anyway. It's a whole thing, you know? So,
Yeah.
So, like, and people don't realize those are things that are subconsciously eating at you until you actually recognize and acknowledge them and work through it.
I've heard it described as how some people can focus on something and they can get tunnel vision and just focus on that one thing, and the ADHD mind has the broader scope. They can't zoom in on one thing. It's really broad, and that's why.
But that's
why if I have my son doing dishes, he's going to go up to the sink and he's going to start doing the dishes, but then this thing catches his eye over here, so he's going to start playing with this, and then he's going to go back.
That's two different things. Like, partially that's not having enough dopamine to keep you engaged, right? Because hyperfocus is the tunnel vision on that one subject to the exclusion of all else, right? And like, that can take on many forms. When I'm cleaning, I am in a cleaning mode. I don't think about anything else. I don't even think about how I clean or the order I go in. I just get started, and then I let myself go. And I'm all over the house, and I'm doing little things, and I'm nitpicking through it all, basically. But by the time it's all said and done with, and I've given myself 3 hours of pure, unadulterated cleaning, it's all done. Maybe not all in the same way, and it's not room by room by room. But surrendering to that process allows for the end result to happen. But it's hard. It's hard to stay focused, and it's hard when you have a lot of stuff piled up. And I've just learned that, I just bounce around until I feel done. And I'll either feel good enough about where I'm at, or I'll be antsy and I'll finish up a little bit more and then be done.
That sounds like my kid.
Yeah, and that's just how it is, like that's just, I sat there and I stared at a sink with 7 dishes in it for the last 2.5 days, and then I finally had to just tell myself, Brayden, it's been 2 days. Just go pick up a dish and start washing it. And then before I knew it, I was washing the
It
dishes.
sounds so simple. It sounds so simple, but it's not simple.
It's not. Well, it's tricking your brain, really and truly. Like, you've really got to find a way.
It really sucks from my standpoint as a mother with an ADHD child. I feel like, man, neurodivergency is a beautiful thing. Like, when my son was diagnosed, I started looking into more research about what ADHD is and the difference between ADHD and the difference between ADD and how autism fits into both of those a little bit. And even when he was diagnosed with autism, but it wasn't a problem. We needed to figure out what the issues were. And it feels easier to read up on it, to understand it, but then I feel like I'm sitting at this point of like understanding, and then, as a mother, and then the world has all these structures. School is made up this way by people who don't have ADHD. They built the school system and the educational systems, and you got to fit in with the majority in order to stay in public school.
See, well, and I think public school would be much easier for people that had ADHD if they had smaller classrooms. What it really boils down to, what makes it hard, is you've got 25 different student bodies per class, and especially when you get to high school, that's
25 to 30.
And then you have 7 classes. You're not guaranteed, you're not going to have all the same kids in every class all the way through. So you're already dealing with mixed energies with different kids, and then you've got 7 different teachers that you got to go through throughout the day, which all have different attitudes, and they'll have different attitudes depending on how the last set of students treated them. So it's all residual, and it's really hard. As somebody with ADHD, it was really hard for me to keep up with school. School was a blur. I don't have a lot of crystal clear memories of it. I was just trying to get through it. I was shut down. I was scoped in, and I just didn't care. It was too hard to match the energy of so many teachers throughout the day. And it was hard to refocus. I have to refocus on something that I may or may not like for the day. Every 45 minutes, I get a break for lunch, and that break is 35 to 50 minutes. 15 of it's eating time because 15 minutes is travel, especially if you go out to the career center.
And to have enough time between classes to shift your brain so that you can focus in on the change of subjects.
So then by the time you're ready to drop into that subject, you've got 10 minutes of class left before you go to the next class and restart the whole thing. And then if you're for me, for a while there, I was at the career center and at West High, bouncing between 2 buildings, and that in and of itself was
I want to take my child's brain, and I want to enjoy all the beautiful different the word is on the tip of my tongue. The different ways that he thinks, the filter in which he views the world is beautiful. The way that his mind operates, it's creative. It is quick to think of new ideas. And his imagination is just glorious. But when it comes to a school setting, to try and get him to fit into the school system and succeed, the different standards that are in school, that you can fidget, he's coughing, he forgets to put his arm up or cover his mouth when he coughs, and sometimes he gets into this vocal stimming thing where he's just coughing to make noise, or he's making duck noises with his mouth, and it is super disruptive in class, and it's very frustrating and irritating for the teachers to make a child to try and get a child to fit into that structured setting.
That's hard.
It's heart-wrenching because I feel like I'm purposely trying to dull the things that make him special and who he is.
And here's the thing, you also were told that there was a bit of autism with him, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it could just be a conversation with him and say, hey, look, because you're having such a hard time in school and you've got a lot going on, if we were to go this route now, mind you, like there's a good chance you'll get picked on. You got to lay it all out for them. But on the other side of being picked on, you're gonna have you're gonna have your classes streamlined. You're not gonna have to go to as many. You'll have more one-on-one interaction with your teachers. If we were to address this with the school and say, hey, look, what can be done and how can we work with this? Because he's already disrupting. He's already having a hard time, and he may not want to. Like, my mom came up to me and asked me, she told me in middle school, halfway through middle school, so 8th grade, she was like, maybe we should get you on medication. And she really, truly wanted me to get on it because she saw how hard I was struggling, but at the end of the day, she left it as my choice. And I look back, and I think I would have made a lot of different decisions had I taken medication back then, but I also know that my life could have ended up way different had I been doing medication in high school or in middle school versus waiting until after I became an adult, 19, a young adult, So
It's hard.
It is. It's really hard to find that balance.
Like my oldest son, I don't believe he was diagnosed with anything, but he struggled in school, and it was better for him to do the online learning. I feel like it might be good for my younger son to do the online learning, but it would be harder for me. And I don't think it would give him the same opportunities to interact and learn how to socialize with him only being 11, turning 12.
Why don't you just let him? Why don't you make it a high school thing? Say, look, if you can get through 9th grade to 10th grade, sophomore year. That's all I'm asking. You work through sophomore year.
And it'd be something to talk to him about. Right? And then the whole pill thing with ADHD, like it is a saving grace for a lot of people who really need it. And it is wonderful to have available.
Yep.
But the side effects that come with it, the long-term side effects for people are ridiculous. And there's so many out there. And that was so frustrating. That was so frustrating dealing with trying to see it's if anybody suffered from depression and you took pills for depression, you understand that you take the pills and you need to wait at least 2 weeks to see results from it. But with ADHD and depression at the same time, it could make the depression or the ADHD worse.
Yep. And that's what makes it, that's where it's hard, and I think the hardest part about the medication avenue, and it took me, I was on Adderall for over 10 years, and towards the end of it, I was lying to my doctor about how often I was taking it because I wanted to take it as I needed it instead of scheduled, and I never bothered to talk to my doctor about it, and that's the other thing. I went to my doctor as an avenue instead of a therapist, which is also I don't recommend that route. That I don't think a doctor should ever be allowed to prescribe Adderall. I think that should be strictly for therapists to be able to do, mostly because that drug is there for you as an enhancer,
as a tool,
as a buffer. Yeah, it helps you learn the habits that you have a hard time learning without having it. But then learning how to keep the habits while not having the Adderall is a whole nother thing. And it's all steps, it's all processes. So it's not wrong or terrible to take medication, but just know that there are going to be a lot of extra steps that you have to be mindful of for yourself and your kids if it's parenting, or yourself if it's you that's dealing with it, where you've really got to be able to follow the balance and not let it get out of hand one way or another.
We had a rough time with pills, but that was that's a different story. Co-parenting is hard, and that was an issue with co-parenting and the medication. But I feel like because we tried the medication and we saw some good results and we were using it with therapy to try and learn different ways that we could cope with the ADHD and the other things he was diagnosed with that we were struggling with. We used the medication for like 4 or 5 years, I think. And then slowly he came off the medication. and then the whole co-parenting thing exploded, and we stopped the medication. But since he stopped the medication, he was looking for more ways that he could control his own ADHD. And
adaptogens are a really good spot to start. Adaptogens are huge. I can't even stress to you how much of a difference it makes in a day when I get adaptogens versus when I don't have them in my and I haven't gotten to a point where I can fine tune which adaptogens work best, which are really they're herbs, people. They're lemongrass, your mushrooms, your reishi, your lion's mane. Those things are all adaptogens. So we can start with a blend, and then as you become more knowledgeable about the adaptogens that you can have available to you and how they affect your brain, you can have a more specialized choice in what you want for your adaptogens that work best.
I also saw this thing recently about this gum that has L-theanine in it
and a good one.
And caffeine. It's a blend of L-theanine and caffeine, and it helps you focus, and L-theanine helps boost your mood.
But then it's but for ADHDers, man, it's more like your magnesium, your zinc, your vitamin Bs, your B12, your B3s, your B6, your fish oil. You need to have that omega-3. Omega-3s are huge. People with ADHD go through so much brain power. That's why they crave
sugar. From the video that I watched before this, this guy was talking about a study that Tom Hartman did, and he theorized that ADHD is passed genetically, and they find that it is in the gene DRD4-7R. That is the gene that carries ADHD and the characteristics that are associated with it. And this Tom Hartman guy, he theorizes that it comes from the hunter-gatherer times. And there was a study done on these two different tribes, nomadic tribes. And this one nomadic tribe had more ADHD people and people with the characteristics. And then there's another nomadic tribe that didn't have any ADHD characteristics or any people that had it. And the nomadic tribe with ADHD was better nourished because they were out hunting, they were out farming, foraging. They weren't
farming. They were foraging and hunting.
Mostly hunting. Mm-hmm. And with the energy output, they were feeding themselves more because they required more energy. I'll link that
the other group
in the study.
Was all croplands and crop fields. They were more farmers, and they were not as well nourished.
No.
And they did not, that gene was not exasperated in that community the way it was with the nomadic tribe.
And then there was another thing that I saw that said the ADHD brain runs on theta waves. Theta waves, okay. Which is the wave that people try to get to when they are meditating. They are trying to calm the beta wave and bring it up to a theta wave. So ADHD people can easily reach
theta wave
and access it more easily, which also brings
moments of hyperfocus.
The hyperfocus, the intuitive feeling of being able to read other people's energies or even feeling it. So that brings us to the spiritual gift of neurodivergency.
And that hits a lot of different clairs. That's clairvoyance, that's claircognizance, clairsentience.
Clairsentient, yep.
There's 7 clairs. I can't remember the other 3. But they are fun to look into. You should look into them. I just don't think there's not a person in the world that can't mesh with at least one of those. I'm not saying you have to believe in them, but I bet there's one out of those 7 that just oh, hey.
Even just thinking of the characteristics of the different neurodivergency, what do you call them? Categories of the characteristics of ADHD, of ADD, of autism, the different spectrums of autism. And the beauty of the mind, the different frame, the filter that people are looking through.
Well, see, and really like a big step to helping you work with your ADHD and helping others work with theirs is really learning perspective. Different perspectives help a lot, and especially with ADHDers, man, they hold on to words. Like words mean everything. They're very specified. Words are set in an order for a reason. I think that's why we have a hard time like getting out the nuances, and we say weird things to describe tastes and feels and experiences, because that's like we're trying to find an analogy or a way to be able to explain the word thoughts that are in our head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's my place. Not too hard about it. Oh, perspective. Yeah. So when you're looking at it, it's not coping. You're not learning how to deal with. You are learning how to understand the way that your ADHD is in effect with the world. And it's not to be able to placate others or anything other than to understand yourself better so you know how to navigate your own world better. And the sooner you can let go of how people expect you to be and allow yourself to just be, it gets easier-ish. But remember, like, that's going to be a huge step. It's going to feel great. It's going to feel freeing. That moment when you can just choose to do it your way because you know it's going to work. And if it doesn't, it's not a big deal. Try again.
Changing perspective, looking at things from a different lens, it helps all around altogether. Whether or not you have a child with ADHD or not, just understanding that people work differently. Everybody's mind is different. So when you are communicating with someone, you have a shape, an image in your mind, and you are trying to portray that into their mind. So how do you vocalize that I see this purple triangle and it's fuzzy and furry into your mind so that you see the exact same thing that I am?
It's like a placebo effect that has the potential to become permanent. That's how I feel about perspective. Because perspective can be like any situation can have a million perspectives, and you get to choose which one.
Mm-hmm.
The cool thing is like when you choose a perspective, more often than not, you already have an idea of what you think something is, right?
Right.
So you've already created a perspective for you, and then as you gain more intel on it, your perspective switches, or you can choose to just skew how you see the information you have in front of you. And when you choose to skew that information, that's the start of the placebo effect. And then, depending on how much you decide to believe it, it'll either become a concrete belief or it'll fall back into its old belief system, waiting for a new opportunity to have something that becomes more permanent.
Yeah. My last little tidbit of information for ADHD is that Forbes magazine said that people with ADHD are 3 times more likely to start their own business than people without ADHD.
It's because they can't function in a corporate world setting. Like, I very strongly believe that. I don't know. Maybe there are some people that are gifted towards that realm of work, but
well, with the stigma that ADHD people can't focus and that they're not intellectual.
They're just overly creative.
Those are just things against it. Well, they can focus. Well, they're very, very good at focusing, but they do it differently than you and I do.
Well, and it's hard because like when you have to work in an environment where there are set rules and regulations and there's nothing outside of those set rules and regulations, you can't bend them, you can't change them, you can't work around them. They have to be that. Like that's a rigorous form of structure that is just doesn't allow for. I
mean, it's gotta be exhausting to grow up with ADHD and have to conform to everybody else's rules and structures. So when you grow up and you can get your own job, it would make more sense to want to make your own mold.
Well, and that's what
ends up make happening. Something that works for you.
And that's what ends up happening. You get enough work experience that you realize you don't like what you're in, and it's not because you don't like the thing, it's because you don't like the structure that took place to make it happen. You can see ways to make it better, and the problem with seeing ways to make it better is you're never near the person that's in the position to make those changes. That's why corporate doesn't work. You know, you can be at McDonald's and you can see something super inefficient, but you're not near anybody that can make that inefficiency go away and turn into an efficiency. So then from there, you either take it into your own hands to do it and you get fired because you're not doing things the way they need to be done, you get reprimanded because you're not doing the things the way they need to be done, or you get pushed into a position of management where things start to go well, but then people feel threatened by you because you can improve things, which got you a better position. Which means if you can improve other things, you may get a higher position, and then it makes people feel threatened, and they don't feel like they can work with you, and then
Right.
sabotage you, and then you don't have a job no more. Whether you quit or they fired you or whatever, like a whole myriad of things. And I think that's a big reason why people that have ADHD tend to do set their own jobs, because they see that they have the control to do the things they want with it, and it's up to them whether it fails or not. Yeah.
So much love for that kid. So much love for that kid. Such a beautiful mind.
And it's hard. It's the hardest part about growing up ADHD is getting parents to treat you as an adult.
So there's this guy on TikTok. His name is Connor DeWolf. And I believe my husband found him first before I did. And he showed me some videos. And the dude has ADHD. And he makes videos on ways that he copes with it, the tools that he's found that work best for him. And one of the first things that I remember actually implementing with my own child was when we're done for the day, you have to take your shoes off. Otherwise, his brain stays in the function of we're still going somewhere, we're still doing things. So he's still a little bit more hyper. But as soon as the shoes come off, his body can calm down. And he knows that we are inside and we're not going anywhere. We don't plan to go anywhere because our socks are touching the floor. And just a small thing like that makes a huge difference.
I'm so in line with that.
And he gives all sorts of other beautiful tools that could be used. And I saved a lot of his videos in the hopes of
implementing those as time goes
trying
by.
them out and seeing if it works with my son.
Yeah. That's all you can do. It's all trial and error. And that's what it meant. That's what I mean by like getting my parents to treat me as an adult. It wasn't like, I need you to treat me like I'm 23, just like you are at the time,
Mm-hmm.
But it's more like I need you to take me seriously. And when I tell you that I want to do something, or I'm having a hard time doing it this way, I don't really want a solution.
It's not lazy.
Well, and I already have a solution. I just want you to. I'm just basically asking you to let me see my solution through to see how productive it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always a big headbutt with me and my parents. Was we were never seeing eye to eye. Things were never. I was always having to do it exactly their way. Or my mom would be like, as long as this gets done, I don't care. And then I start doing it my own way. She goes, you're not doing it right. And it's like, it doesn't matter if I'm doing it right. I'm going to get the same result. So there was a lot of that. And I just
my son and I butt heads like that sometimes. There's things like that you gotta let go of.
Yeah,
how.
Well, and then like we always say
different tactics. Let's if it's not working, quit pushing and shoving and trying to force it. Let's switch tactics, and that's where I'm trying to adjust.
It's hard because as parents we want what's best for our kids, but we also know deep down that like we can't make their choices for them.
Mm-hmm.
So like if they're gonna take the time to make choices, then they should be validated in those choices. And it's not to say let them run amok and do their own things, but if you don't think it's a good idea, their choice, then talk it out with them. See, and it's not like breaking their own thing down, but it's asking them like, how did you get to this? This is what you wanted. This is your solution, and just work with me.
Well, not only that, but letting them see their part to the end gives them that ability to build their own self-confidence. Well, if they can then work through the things using the tactic that they want to use, then they're
building that confidence to try it.
Yeah, and then they see it through and it worked for them, and then they have confidence in their own ability to handle.
And not only that, but they're going to
their ADHD.
They're going to come to you with more because you're allowing them to be able to take the reins on how it needs to be approached. And that's really, I think, where a lot of, myself included, but I'm going to call us parents out, that's where we really miss it with our kids. Is we have the idea that we know we can't make choices for them, but we make them fight so hard to just have their own choice that they don't want to make choices anymore, or they're not going to tell you about the choices they make because they're tired of the ridicule and they're tired of the pushback. they can't make any progress. And it's expecting somebody to swim upriver, but then putting them on a boat and telling them, figure it out. You know, like, you can't swim up a river if you're stuck in a boat going downstream with 2 paddles. You just can't do it. It's already hard enough to swim upriver without a boat. You know?
Or taking away their ability to do it.
Yeah. And
if you're forcing them to take one avenue and you're not letting them, I'm losing it. Oh, so if you want a patient kid, you can't take away the task that is going to teach them to become patient. If you do it for them, that's what I'm getting at. You can't do it for them.
And you can't make the choice for them.
Yeah. So you have to let them struggle through, and that's what builds their confidence. Or the fact that the task is taking longer is going to build their own patience.
Yeah, it's like if your kid is taking 3 hours to do dishes, instead of breaking them down and telling them, oh man, I can't believe it's taking you 3 hours to just get this load of dishes done. It's just a sink full of dishes. I don't know why it's that hard. Instead, just being like, hey, I realize that you've been here for a few hours, and not only do you not have all your dishes done, but it just looks like you're probably going to be here for a bit. So, like, what's going to speed it up? Give me some answers. Get them to start thinking. Is it going to be a movie?
Problem solving.
Yeah, is it going to be a movie in front of the thing? Is it going to be their song? Is there candy at the end of this? Like, whatever it takes.
That's something I'm working on with my kid. Because every time he comes to a roadblock, he's like, oh, I don't know what to do. Mom, how do I fix this?
Yeah.
Well, how do you problem solve, kid? What do you think you should do to fix this?
How do you want to fix this?
Yeah.
What are you looking to achieve?
Oh, it's so difficult.
Yeah. Can you guys tell I have a lot of trauma with dishes?
Oh, I hate dishes too.
I've come to not hate them. I've let go of that. You can't hate your dishes. Because you hate your dishes, you're already giving them more energy than they deserve to get them, right? At the end of the day, dishes are just something that we eat off. There's no inconvenience to having to wash them. There's every opportunity to enjoy the fact that you've got that clean dish. And I know it sounds cliche, but that's that perspective again. If you just go at it like, I'm going to be washing these dishes and they'll be available for use later. And better yet, I won't have to take them from the sink. I won't have to scrub them right when I'm ready to eat. Like, they'll already be done. It'll be nice. And it won't take long. And if it does take long, it doesn't matter that it takes long. Because I got nothing else going on in my day for the next however long, you know? You got to justify the excuses. You got to justify, okay, so like you give yourself excuses and outs to not do the things. Oh, you know, I just did my nails and I can't get them wet. Oh, you know, somebody's in the shower. I gotta wait for them to be done, and I gotta wait for the sink to, and I gotta wait for the hot water to get back full so that I can fill the sink with dishes. And like, those are all things, yes, but like, you also have like the whole, okay, well, while they're in the shower, I could get my dishes put away, and then, you know, like clean dishes, right? And then like I know I need hot water in that sink, but since I can't get it until a little bit afterwards, maybe they'll just, I don't know, I'll sweep the floor or wipe the counters down.
Alternatives.
Give yourself alternatives and then bounce back to the thing. And if you don't bounce back to the thing, it must not have been a big deal and you can try again later.
I have to give myself an end date. Or like, I need to get this done by. Like, okay, it'd be okay if I don't get it done today, but I need to get it done by tomorrow evening. So I have from today until tomorrow evening to get this done. So I don't want to hold this over my head, so we need to get it done quickly. We need to get it done now.
I love that. I've changed the need to want. So instead of, I need it done by tomorrow night.
I've never wanted to do the dishes.
But that's where the perspective is. So instead of saying, I need to get it done by tomorrow night, it's, I want this.
Thank goodness I have a dishwasher.
But just think about
instead of hand washing.
If you take the same amount of desire, just think about it. It's desire, right? But your words got to match your energy. So if you say, I need to, you're taking that energy and you're turning it into a frantic, like, it has to get done, right? And that's good. It works. You know, that's part of that whole survival mode that people get.
Otherwise, I'll continue being like, you don't have to do it. It's okay that you didn't do it. Give yourself grace, Whitney.
But if you give yourself that same ardent desire, instead of saying the words and needs, it's I want, that desire becomes a blossoming of feeling good about having it accomplished. Instead of, I beat myself to a strict talking to. But it's not easy. And that perspective doesn't stick and it doesn't always work. And that's what I love about perspective is it can always change to fit the need, to get yourself motivated to do things you want to do.
Make it fit you.
Yeah. Well, and just understand yourself enough to know how to work with yourself. Like, our brains already trick us all the time and put limiters on what we do through fear. Well, through fear, the what if scenarios, the oh no, it might not work, or blah, blah, right? So if the brain can do that and keep us stuck, then we can do that to our brain to move ourselves forward.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get really good at tricking yourself, lying to yourself to find a better truth, I don't know how I'm going to say it.
Just keep putting tools in your toolbox, man.
And just know that, like, not one tool will do every job. So don't be frustrated if the first tool doesn't work. Go find another one. There's a million of them out there. One of them specialized to you, and you just don't know it yet.
So my child is having lots of issues in school. He had the last 2 days he had in-school suspension.
And I bet he likes that. I mean, other than the fact that he can't do anything, it's one fucking class all day. He doesn't have to move anywhere.
Yeah, but when I went to the school to go drop off my daughter's backpack, the assistant principal pulled me aside and told me that he wasn't taking in-school suspension seriously. He was causing disruptions in the front office where he was being kept, and he has a stack of missing work that he didn't do at all.
I wouldn't want to touch that either. That would be so overwhelming to see a stack of missing work. I'd rather him just hand me 3 sheets at a time until I can't stand seeing 3 sheets at a time.
Well, he had a couple different teachers that were trying to help him with the missing assignments, and he just refused to do it. So
it's hard. School is hard.
We're having issues, but we're going to try therapy again. So I've got him signed up for therapy. Next Wednesday is our first one.
Is it like...
So we're going to look at different tools.
Is it like...
we can throw in our toolbox.
Parent-child therapy? Or is it just child therapy?
Well, the first initial appointment is met with the parents, and then they talk to the kid. I mean, it'll probably be a mixture of both, but probably just mostly for him. He has an IEP at school, so he has a special teacher that he sees every day, and she is a behavioral therapist, or she has some sort of degree to work with kids.
That's exciting.
So she sees him every day. Yeah, I don't know. Between my house, his dad's house, the school, he's got a couple different people that he can talk to. So if we're going outside the school, I think it'll give him an outside person that won't be biased at all.
He needs, like, a grounding thing, something that'll help him ground wherever he's at, something that feels like, I don't want to say it feels like home, but it's home base, like where he can bring himself back.
I was interested in looking at different fidget toys and stuff, but those become an issue at school.
Yeah, I don't think fidget toys quite what you need. I'm gonna go a little esoteric on you, but like maybe a stone.
Yeah.
Like a fist-sized stone that he can just hold. He might fidget with it. He may do the things. It may become a disruption. That's like always a possibility. But it's solid. It's earth. You can carry it in his pocket. And it may just be something that helps regulate.
It's a cute idea.
Yeah.
He's very sentimental about things. I think it'd be nice. So guess what, people? I've got a little microphone today, so I hope you can hear us better. Mr. Soft-spoken Braden over here.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And I got a light ring to hopefully make the video look a little better. I'm investing in some equipment, so I hope you guys can hear a difference as opposed to using the phone microphone. Right. I have some more coming in. I was so excited to set it up today. I think it looks better. I think we look better. You can see us. And I guess I'll have to rewatch the video, but I hope you guys can hear us pretty well.
Wow. It's wild that you say that, Stephanie. Sorry, I'm going to cut in. I jumped into the comments on my phone. with the whole Devin wanting to die when he was on his meds, I heard a lot through a lot of friends in high school that were on meds that were talking about being zombified and just not being their true selves and not really who they're supposed to be. Friends would notice it, and I felt that very perplexing.
It's almost like people want to make you feel worse so that you fit in.
Well, I mean,
that was a hard.
What I found perplexing about it was that, like,
part of looking at it.
I did not have a hard time. Like, when I got on medication, I felt a million times better. I felt like an amazing version of myself. I could see. Everything was clear. It's like the fog lifted, you know? And with that, I was able to really do a lot more and understand a lot more. I didn't feel so... Have you guys seen the book or read the book, Flowers for Algernon? Do you remember that book? It was a short story.
That sounds really familiar.
It was about a guy who became a test subject for a leading edge drug that's supposed to spike your intelligence level, and it proved successful in these mice. And so they moved it to human trials, and they took him because his IQ was super low. We're talking like 70s. Low. And as he took that medication, he progressively became super, super smart, like genius level, Albert Einstein level smart. And then they found out that the drug also caused a very short life expectancy. He was going to die like 2 or 3 months later. And
that sounds so familiar.
But listening or reading through his progression of where he was at when he started versus where he got to, and seeing his whole mind become clarified, if you will.
I think that is like the best viewpoint on how moving to medication could go.
Yes.
We went through like 5 or 6 different medications, and there were a couple that were okay, and there were absolutely a couple that turned him into a zombie. And it was so depressing because as a parent, to watch your child turn into a zombie, the beautiful, hyperactive child with a beautiful mind that sometimes annoys the crap out of you, just go, yeah, okay, okay, yeah, I'm happy. Just all the beauty and color, everything just drain out of them. And then to hear, yeah, they're great in school, they're doing so much better, things are good. I'm like, okay, so I just killed my child's spirit to make sure he's easier for you to handle.
Yeah, that's basically what it felt like, huh? Yeah, see, so I didn't have that experience.
To find a good balance.
I had a really good friend named Mike, and he was talking about that. He said he absolutely hated being on medication. He'd been on everything from Ritalin to Vivance to Adderall, and he didn't like any of it. And it did that. It just shut him down. He was just very much like, ugh. So I'm grateful that I didn't have that experience, but it's wild to hear that it happens so often. And then it just, really questions the validity of how well medication works. Man, I'm telling you, it works so good for me. I was convinced that if everybody in the world just had a little bit of Adderall, we would have a much better place.
I absolutely agree that it should be done with a therapist.
Yes, most definitely.
And not just a doctor, because I feel like the normal stigma for everything is if you got issues and you're a disruption, then you need to be put on pills.
Yeah.
And if you're not on pills, why aren't you on pills?
Well, see,
why the heck aren't you on pills?
See, I didn't.
Like, hey, we're trying different approaches here. Like, my mother, for my sister, she used to give a half of a caffeinated soda to her before school.
Yeah.
And I did that with my kid, and it worked great in the mornings. Even though they pick me up in the afternoon, but like just a little bit of caffeine could go a long ways. Mm-hmm. Granted, that is technically a drug, but
chocolate.
Yeah.
And if you do chocolate, make it dark chocolate. The dark chocolate has antioxidants that really help the brain just like zero in.
Or just some other vitamins,
Adaptogens. I'll go back to it. Adaptogens, man.
Yep.
Gotta look into them. I wish I would look into them more one day. But, I work on so many things. That's the ADHD. You got so many great ideas.
I feel like mental health is more talked about nowadays, so that's why it's more... You could say more people say they have it because, they're...
I think everybody's going to have tendencies, right? It's kind of like narcissism. Everybody has tendencies of narcissism, but the difference between the tendencies and a narcissist are really like how those...
Or just sharing your experiences, because, social media can go incredibly far. Somebody will talk about all these experiences that they've had and then realize that, oh my gosh, I'm a lot like that. I could be like 30 something years old and I might have ADHD and I've lived with it my entire life and I just didn't know.
You know, I will say though, being diagnosed ADHD doesn't change anything. Your life doesn't.
No, but it gives you a different filter to look through. So to understand it and see it from a different lens.
You're not wrong there. You're not wrong.
As opposed to just, I am like this.
I guess what I'm saying is like, if you feel that you're ADHD, I'm not saying go get yourself medicated, but there's no harm in learning the little tricks. You just go like this. Maybe it's dead because it hasn't been charged.
I think I might need to charge the mic. My mic died, guys.
So I don't know if you can hear us, but this is the end of our show for the night.
Next time I will have things prepped and charged and ready, but I hope it worked for the most part. Can you hear me from over here? Did you hear me better with the mic?
I bet you they did because they said no audio, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Boom.
All right. Well, it was a good start.
Until next time, guys.
Yes. Thanks for joining.
Bye-bye.